My name is Lotika Pai, the City of Chicago's Chief Small Business Officer and Managing Deputy Commissioner for the Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, also known as BACP. The BACP curated Behind the Business License series showcases the value of our Neighborhood Business Development Center program for current and future business owners. The program consists of over 60 local business service organizations that provide no-cost, hyper-local business support. This episode features the Rogers Park Business Alliance and the Recyclery. Located at the northeast corner of Chicago, Rogers Park is one of Chicago's most diverse neighborhoods with more than 60 different languages spoken. You'll find architectural gems, authentic global eateries, and a cutting-edge theater scene, all nestled in this welcoming lakefront enclave. The Recyclery is a lively, community-driven, nonprofit bike shop dedicated to empowering people with bicycle repair and maintenance skills. To help them and other entrepreneurs along their journey, the Rogers Park Business Alliance offers meaningful opportunities and resources. The Rogers Park Business Alliance, established in 1993, is a 501c3 nonprofit focused on business, community, and economic development in Rogers Park.
The Recyclery Collective is a hub for people who ride bikes, love bikes, rely on bikes to come together and share resources around knowledge around bike maintenance and repair. So we offer classes and workshops for all ages. We're also a place for people to bring their used bikes as opposed to maybe throwing it in the scrap or in the trash. And we take people's donated used bikes and refurbish them either for our sales floor or for local donation to folks most in need of a bike for transportation. So at the Recyclery, we have programs every day of the week except for Friday. Those programs range from workshops where people can bring their bikes and volunteer mechanics provide guidance and support for you to fix your own bike. We also have more practice times, I would say, for volunteers to build their mechanic skills while refurbishing the bikes that we're then able to donate. So that's kind of a large part of what we do. The Recyclery has all kinds of programs for all ages, including youth programs. We do those programs in collaboration with local schools and other youth development organizations. One that I run in collaboration with After School Matters. It's 3 seasons, fall, spring, and summer. And we have a lot of students who are in the program multiple sessions, maybe throughout their whole high school experience. So that really enables us to build their skills and develop youth leaders because the returning students will turn around and provide guidance and support for the newer students. And in that program, so it's a combination of learning bike mechanics and doing group rides. The group rides, we're definitely focusing on bike safety and how to navigate the city safely on a bike. And we also use bikes for field trips. So I like to exhibit the bike as a useful means of transportation. Sometimes, like if we have seniors, right? And if they know that they're gonna be going to Truman in the fall, maybe we'll do a bike ride to Truman so that they know that they have this way of getting to school and back. And also we'll do kind of cultural experiences. We'll do a bike ride to the Goodman Theater or to a concert. So going from Rogers Park to downtown Chicago is an adventure in and of itself. It's a pretty long ride, and I just like for them to really feel how useful the bike can be for them in expanding the city and expanding their access to their whole city, because it's their city, and I want them to feel like they're, connected. The heart of the Recyclery, what keeps it going year after year, is definitely our volunteer base. We have an amazing crew of dedicated volunteers, including the collective members who bring their passion for bikes, their creativity, their expertise, and a number of arenas. They bring that all and help us keep the project going. And I would say also our partnerships with other organizations, whether it's schools, other bike shops, other community bike shops, the Rogers Park Business Alliance, all kinds of organizations. Our partnerships help us stay grounded and feel really connected with the community. The people who devote a lot of time around here are, for the most part, people who themselves have the bike bug. They're people who really experience the benefit of having a bike on their lives, and they want to share it. So I think we can all recognize that there are barriers to embracing bikes and bike culture, whether that's social or financial or structural. So part of what motivates us is to diminish those barriers however we can, to provide greater access for people to have bikes and find them useful and engage in bike community. Bikes as transportation is definitely one way that people can lower their carbon footprint and just do their part to care for the environment. Also, diverting bikes from the waste stream and taking that 20, 30, 40-year-old bike that, if with a little bit of TLC, can become a really wonderful ride again, that in its own way impacts the environment. So that's definitely a large motivation for people to contribute around here. The Recyclery Collective is a nonprofit organization, and also we're somewhat of a social enterprise. We sell refurbished bikes, and this actually covers a large part of our budget. More than 50% of our budget is covered by our bike sales, which we couldn't do without a business license. So it's definitely very important to our business model. And while we do rely on grants and donations to be able to run our programs and expand their capacity over time, it's the bike sales that help us cover our overhead costs and keep the lights on. So not only are we increasing access to bikes, but those skills that we're teaching, bike maintenance and repair skills, they impact people's lives as well. There's several instances of people who've learned mechanics and honed their mechanic skills here who now are bike shop owners or bike shop staff, including at Divvy, for example. The new owners of formerly Uptown Bikes, now it's Broadway Bikes. One of those mechanics learned her skills here and was on staff here for years, and she's actually still a collective member here. And one of the owners of Vernon Sunnies, which is a bike shop in Logan Square, she was on staff here. And it's fun to visit their shops and see what they've grown getting their start at the Recyclery. One of our key challenges is space. Like, our class size is limited by the amount of space we have in our workshop. The number of staff we can have is limited. We could work with more interns, which is definitely part of our mission, is to support young bike mechanics. That's part of that workforce development piece as well. So if we had a larger space, we could expand our programs for sure. We're largely volunteer run, which is a beautiful thing. We're really a community organization. That said, our schedule ends up being admittedly a little bit wonky and a little bit limited hours. If we did have more funding or more resources in general, we could increase our staff and have more of our programs covered by staff, and maybe iron out our schedule to become a bit more easier to navigate for people. And So back in 2009, that's when the Recyclery moved from the basement over here to our storefront. Our PBA helped us access the SSA facade rebate program, and we were able to do a renovation. That was huge. Also, more recently, a few years back, a volunteer sponsored the installation of an outdoor repair station right in front of our shop. So our PBA helped us with the public way use permitting for that, and they also actually subsidized the annual fees for that, because they recognize, we kind of discussed how this is really more of a public good than a revenue generating kind of project for us, and so they've taken that on, and we really appreciate that.
Our PBA is a 501c3. We're a nonprofit organization, but we also do a lot of the functions that you would expect from a neighborhood chamber. So in addition to programming like networking events and things, we also, as an NBDC, provide assistance to businesses with things like permitting, licensing, occasionally zoning, and then in addition to our general technical assistance, which includes our Grow Progresando entrepreneurship training program, as well as one-on-one coaching and workshops in both English and Spanish. So as part of our assistance to businesses, we help people with capital access, we help people with finding rebate and grant opportunities. We offer the GATA certification for folks that are applying for state funding, and just basically like get the word out about the resources and opportunities that exist in the city for businesses. So Rogers Park Business Alliance is a delegate agency of the city for purposes of assisting folks with permitting, licensing, zoning type stuff when they're opening a business. We have 4 different special service areas that fund things like business marketing, marketing assistance, neighborhood beautification, things like public art, landscaping, snow removal, and also we have through our SSAs a facade rebate program, which Recyclery has used and has benefited from because that program was able to assist when they moved into this facility in enclosing a portion of their storefront that used to have a little vestibule. So it added square footage to the shop floor, and then we also assisted with installing an awning with signage. Like the storefront we did kind of have a hand in, which is really, really exciting and neat to be able to contribute in that kind of way. One of the biggest challenges that folks have and that we see, unfortunately, is we'll have people come to us after having signed a lease for a space, not knowing that it doesn't have the proper zoning or they need a special use, that they weren't prepared to go through that process in those initial consults, and refer them to resources to go through that special use process or find an attorney to get out of that lease that they signed not knowing what they were doing. And then we also encourage folks, when they've come to us before having found a space, to get in contact with brokers. We do a couple of times a year our broker open house events, and we bring together all the folks that we know of that are looking for commercial space in the neighborhood with brokers that we know who are marketing available commercial spaces in the neighborhood so that they can meet each other and set up times to view the spaces. A few times we've included space tours as part of that event. And then for businesses that are up and running, public way use permits, because there's not a lot of other resources out there besides us and BACP as to how to go about that process. The website is kind of intimidating. And the insurance requirements, a lot of insurers aren't aware of that and don't know what to do when they get asked for that insurance certificate. And so we have businesses that'll come to us after having had a visit from an inspector that their sign needs a permit, that they've never had a permit, or it's a sign that was there when they moved in. So helping them through the process, like on numerous occasions I've sat with people and helped them put in their stuff in the portal. We encourage folks from Small Business Saturday, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, to New Year's, if they collect receipts of $25 or more from 4 different independently owned businesses in Rogers Park, they can give us a copy of those receipts and we send them a rebate check. Those usually go out in late February, early March, so we just did them. It's a trackable way for us to see the impact that our marketing efforts are having in the community, and it's a way that we can do really meaningful marketing for our local businesses that doesn't require them to do extra work, because we do the work for them of marketing the program, all the data management of collecting the receipts and making sure that folks are eligible. So, and then sending out either a $50 or $75 check, depending on how much total spending that the person did in Rogers Park. So specific to our work with the Recyclery, one of the biggest and most visible projects has been the facade grant process for the storefront, which was admittedly before either of us got here, but I think that kind of speaks to the length and history of the relationship between the Recyclery and our PBA. In addition to that, we've also done some of that one-on-one assistance for public way use permitting for the bike corral and the fix-it station outside that were installed. That's something that the SSA continues to pay for permitting for because we see it as a public good and part of the streetscape. So the really special thing about the Recyclery is that it functions as a third space. It's a place for people to gather and experience fellowship and learn new skills together. So that also impacts the surrounding businesses by generating foot traffic, because people come to a class or a volunteer event, and at the end of that class, maybe they want to hang out some more, they want to go get a drink or get a meal. So it brings business to the surrounding shops and restaurants in the neighborhood. And then the other piece of it that is not as obvious as workforce development. So there are several folks that are kind of alumni of the Recyclery that learned how to be bike mechanics here and then went on to either work at employment at another bike shop as a mechanic. And then there are a few that have gone on to own their own bike shops. The other thing too, as a community benefit, is creating an extra transportation option. One of the data points that we found in doing our 1 Howard Street corridor planning process was that the surrounding census tracts have some of the lowest household car ownership percentages in the city. And so being able to have an additional transit option besides having to rely on the bus or the train to get to a job downtown or to get to a job like closer to the airport or further west that's harder to reach with transit. A bike makes that attainable for someone that's maybe looking for work. Being able to bring people together for our workshops and technical assistance programs gives them not only the knowledge that we're providing in the training, but the opportunity to meet each other. And we can provide referrals to folks that are looking for professional services for B2B type operations. And then for Rogers Park in particular, we know that it's a long travel time to get downtown to BACP if you need to go in person for something. To take the train from Howard Street, which is the end of the Red Line, all the way to downtown, you're looking at 45 minutes to an hour each way. And we recognize that people's time is valuable, particularly business owners. So being able to have folks come to us or have us go to them in some cases to help with paperwork and make sure that, if they do have to go downtown in person, that they have all their documents together so that they won't have to make multiple trips. So those two are the big things, because we recognize that BACP can't do everything. And we fill in those gaps by introducing entrepreneurs to service providers and to each other and providing that additional training and support. Neighborhood business development centers bridge the gaps that exist between the services that BACP provides and the needs of our entrepreneurs in the community.
New Behind the Business License episodes air every other Tuesday on Cable 25, and reruns occur continuously. Also, episodes can be viewed by visiting youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. Our guests will always have valuable information to share, so please join us next time on Behind the Business License.